So Kota Tua, a city aged 500 years old, also known as Batavia. Batavia was the old trading port between the Indonesians and the Dutch for spices. Spices worth a lifetime of money a few centuries ago. And I would dare say that Kota Tua, hundreds of years ago, was the most prosperous city at that time. And those were certainly my thoughts when I first went to Kota Tua 3 years ago. I could still remember the scene vividly. I was on a Jakarta Good Guide walking tour, and the first stop that I made was to this building, Gedung Bumi Daya. And it really attracted my eye because of its white facade, and it looked somewhat like a theater. So I was very interested to go in, and I eventually did. And here was what I found. I expected this building to hold some type of activity, economic activity, whether that be a hotel, a restaurant, a cafe, or even maybe a museum. After all, it's a symbol of our heritage here in Jakarta. But here is what I found. This is the reality behind the white and beautiful facade. An empty building that still today remains unused. By the way, this building is 200 years old. And so I wondered at that time, is this the condition of all buildings in Kota Tua? Or is this only occurring for one building? But I would soon find out that this is indeed the condition of most buildings in Kota Tua. And most buildings are also inaccessible. This is because 60 to 70% of buildings in Kota Tua are privately owned. And these businesses, they lose an incentive to actually redesign these buildings because there's not much economic activity in Kota Tua, as well as the very high maintenance costs for restoring a century-old building. So, after that, I thought to myself, why can't Kota Tua be as well managed as places like Malacca in Malaysia, or Essen in Germany, or even Surakarta in Solo? And so I thought to myself, I need to do something about this problem that I'm facing. But in a way, I also thought back, and I thought to myself, I'm still a student here in Sekolah Pelita Harapan. I still have other commitments and extracurricular activities. How can I possibly help Kota Tua? And so I challenged myself. The next day, after visiting that museum, I went back to Kota Tua, not to visit more buildings, but instead to talk with the local people at Kota Tua. Because I really do believe that the best way to know a new city and a new place is to talk to its locals. And so I remember talking to an iced tea seller who told me that his iced teas would melt before noon. And I also talked to a hotel lobbyist in a very famous hotel in Kota Tua who told me that the only visitors to Kota Tua are the Dutch, because the Dutch want to visit their ancestral graves. And so that really painted a very vivid picture and perspective of Kota Tua that I never had before. And so the next few months, the next 3 months, I spent my time building a 3D city plan of Kota Tua using the SketchUp application. And today I can show you this is what it looks like. I wanted to make a city plan that of my dreams and hopes for Kota Tua. The Gedung Bumi Daya that we discussed just now, in my plan, it would be a theater showing a play of our founding fathers and Sukarno. Across Fatahillah Square, in my plan, there would be a shopping street full of stores and areas where business and local businesses could use for restaurants, to sell local souvenirs and such. And there would be more squares and public spaces in Kota Tua, which is very lacking right now. There would be places where people like me who like to wander off into cities, where we can go and find a random coffee shop and maybe talk to a few different new people. And so, after creating this plan, I felt a sense of, well, I felt like I accomplished something. I made a city plan. But in a way, in the other hand, I also felt that my work in Kota Tua is still not enough. By the way, I made this plan 3 years ago. And since then, I've started to find more ways where I can impact Kota Tua directly. Because making a master plan is great, but what's the value of these ideas if it's not implemented? And so I established a student organization called the Kota Tua Project. And the mission is simple: to transform Kota Tua using data and youth empowerment. Our vision is it's quite daring, I must admit. It's to make Kota Tua a UNESCO World Heritage Site by 2020. And our slogan is Kota Tua, Kota Kita. That's my favorite part of our profile. The translation is, of course, Old Town is our town. And after setting the student organization about a year ago, I learned a lot of valuable lessons that I would like to share. Firstly, I learned of the power of connecting with individuals and organizations that are like-minded. So the Kota Tua Project is based in my school right here in Sekolah Pelita Harapan, and I founded it along with 5 other members, 5 other friends, and as a group we would engage with a lot of discussions on a weekly basis on how to solve the issues in Kota Tua. But this year we've expanded to 12 of our members. One of our biggest partners is the Consortium of Kota Tua. The Consortium is a public-private partnership scheme formed by President Jokowi when he was the governor of Jakarta. And its task is to solve the issues in Kota Tua. Through the consortium, we have had access to a steady stream of Jakarta's leaders. I've had the privilege myself to talk to and present to leaders such as Ibu Mari Pangetsu, who is the ex-Minister of Trade and the Creative Economy, as well as Pak Hiram Shah, who is the head of the top 10 national destinations as part of the tourism agency in Indonesia. And so far, these leaders have really liked our plan. But I would say that my biggest experience in my life and up to this point is meeting Pa Ahok during the Jindo event early this year. And I talked to Pa Ahok, our ex-governor, regarding Kota Tua, and I will never forget what he said to me then. He told me that a lot of experts like to tell him that Kota Tua will be revitalized by 20 to 30 years. But then he said he would always respond to them by saying that 5 years is enough. And I really share this desire because, in my opinion, if we put enough faith and belief in something, we don't need 20 years to revitalize Kota Tua. 5 years is enough. So far, we've created a lot of events. One of them is a Instagram campaign that we made last year, which attracted, and this project was actually done in order to promote the revitalization efforts in Kota Tua. And we didn't expect much as a team. We didn't have a lot of funds and financial incentives, and we mostly relied on word of mouth on social media. But at the end, we gained over 400 participants, and these are some posts that show the project. We have also co-hosted events with the Consortium of Kota Tua Jakarta. It was a speaking event this year. It was called Kick-Off Revitalization in Kota Tua. And after speaking, we would repaint a building with some of the leaders in Kota Tua. And personally, I felt that this was a really good event because it's very rare, especially in Jakarta in Indonesia, to have our leaders engage in discussions in front of our own people and even repaint alongside them. This summer, I got an internship in Jakarta Smart City. Jakarta regional government. And I was really surprised to see that that internship also linked to my Kota Tua story, because I was after my team supervisor saw my how I was interested in Kota Tua, he connected me to Bapeda, which is the Jakarta Regional Planning Agency. And so Bapeda invited me to attend a workshop, a regional peer learning workshop on Kota Tua. And I was the only high school student in this event. But to give you context, beside me, to the left and to the right, there was a mayor of a city in Philippines called Vigan, and also some leaders from Frankfurt in Germany and also Guangzhou in China. And in this three-day event, all these leaders were all communicating different solutions that worked in their historical cities, which could be implemented in Kota Tua. And it was really exciting for me, indeed. But the main takeaway that I got from this event is I finally got to see the progress that was made inside Kota Tua from the inside out. And I was really pleased to see how, I forgot to mention that in front of me at that time was the head of Bapeda herself, Ibu Tuti, and this was on the first day. She was talking about the current progress in Kota Tua. And after her session, there was a question and answer session, and I followed up with, and I told her of my dreams and of the Kota Tua project. By the end of my comment, she was really surprised, not just because I was a high school student, but also because I dared to tell her about my ideas and opinions of Kota Tua. And at the end, she invited me to be a part of the Bapeda team that deals with Kota Tua. And of course, I couldn't say no to that opportunity. But in this event, there were a lot of historical cities who shared with us their progress. This was a lady from the city of Essen in Germany. She was part of the UNESCO committee. And so she shared to us how Kota Tua can be a UNESCO World Heritage Site. But if there's one thing that I want everyone here to take away from my presentation today, I would say that it has been an honor to work in Kota Tua, but it's also rather surprising for me because, especially in Indonesia, as a young person, I've always thought that those who deal with politics and development in general it's like a grown-up conversation. Even in Kota Tua, I used to think that I could not make any difference in Kota Tua. After all, there are already a lot of experts, archaeologists, historians, even economists who actually have the final say on Kota Tua. But my perception was really wrong at the end, because I got to convey a lot of my ideas to the different leaders in Kota Tua. And so I think it's really important for us to use this experience to show how there's no, in a way, there's no barriers between in different areas that we're interested in. I myself, I'm interested in politics, and I've always thought that experts would rule politics, like politicians and economists. But in a way, I guess we all have that perception. I mean, who are we? We are just citizens. What part do we have in the growth of our Indonesian society? But in a way, there's no boundaries, and we shouldn't think with these boundaries in mind. At the end, we have to rethink cultural development. We have to rethink public policy, and we have to rethink politics in general. Because I thought that the answer with revitalizing Kota Tua lied with experts, but in a way I was wrong. In order to revitalize Kota Tua, we need environmentalists, politicians, but also artists and actors and actresses, and even visitors like you and me, and even iced tea sellers and hotel lobbyists to start engaging with the discussions on how Kota Tua can be revitalized. And that, I believe, applies to any different field that you are in, whether that's in business or in the creative industry. No matter your background, you always have, your idea can always be beneficial to your community if you try to make it beneficial. So thank you very much for listening to my speech.
You can just stay.